Yeah, I think you expressed it very well, is what your line is. I kind of think, though, of unity, the one thing we haven't talked about is the end of John 17:23. But he prayed for that we might be brought to complete unity. For what purpose? To let the world know that you sent me, that Jesus sent from God, and that you love them as much as you love me. So kind of in the John 17 unity, I believe that's we unite with everybody that wants to let people know that Jesus is sent from God, and that God loves every person on earth as much as he loves his own son. The unity, I think, that Eduardo was asking for too, would we be inclusive, would our circle include those that you don't even want that? Because I think that's what Jesus wants too. He's not willing for any to perish, but for all to come to repentance. So, I get a lot out of Richard Rohr. Anyone read Richard Rohr? When you read Richard Rohr too much, you sort of go, well, it goes a little far. But he has as much understanding about the love of the Father and what communion is, what grace is, as anybody. So if you say, well, I don't agree with this one, dismiss everything. And if we can just kind of see that we can learn from everybody that we talk with, everybody that we encounter, that's where the that's where the breakthroughs are going to come through. I want to thank Arthur and Molly just for the work that they've done that allows them to be with us today to speak with such clarity the power of reconciliation. All of us, I think, we're very, very deeply ministered to. So thank you guys very much. I want to talk, I work for a technology. I work with a guy that's the last 3 or 4 years has been building a technology company. It's kind of forced me to kind of step out of my minister roles and really kind of learn a lot about technology. And I'll take you through just a couple of things. And I might have to read my own screen here, but when we think, just a thought though, when we think about the kingdom, as an early adopter, I work for a guy named Scott Beck, who has starred Blockbuster Video and Einstein Bagel stuff, but he could see technology coming, so we started to think about how we could use technology to change relationships with God and with other people. And so I remember putting together a presentation back then, and I looked at my old slides, but here's from 1999, eBay, and it was a place where you get information on what you could buy, and also make some transactions. I think it's real interesting, though, where they were thinking, because hot off the press, eBay magazine, get your subscription now. They still didn't get it. They thought, well, this is a good thing, but print media is where it's at. So we need to get you to subscribe to, eBay magazine. It's quite a shock top for some of you, I know. But the Web 2.0 gave people the ability to create content, share content, interact with each other. And that was an amazing breakthrough. And so in 2005, I started my own blog. It looked like that, and I'm a blogger, someone with nothing to say, writing to someone with nothing to do. That was how blogger was defined. A little bit about myself. That was actually my final post on this until I went to my new format. But started that in 2005, and it was great because I felt I had something to say to the world. I just didn't want to read what other people say. I thought I had something to say. And so it gave me that opportunity. And so today, though, the most successful companies in the world, if you read USA Today, just how Facebook it was probably going to surpass Google in what they're doing. Because they operate on what's called a platform. And a platform, just by definition, is a place to stand. So Michael Hyatt says, a place to stand to be seen or heard. Its purpose to connect two or more groups in a way that benefits both sides. Okay, so now we're thinking about city transformation, as a platform. A couple other definitions. A platform is any base of technologies on which other technologies or processes are built. And then to do that, it says two or more groups of consumers who need each other in some way, but who can't capture the value from their mutual attraction on their own and rely on the catalyst to facilitate value-creating reactions between them. It kind of sounds kind of scientific, but if you read this through the eyes of city transformation, then the city transformation becomes a platform that I need government to change my city. I need business to change my city. I need other pastors to change my city. I need artists to change my city. I need musicians and poets to change my city. And so you have, because it's those people that really add their own value. And this might seem like just sort of like razzmatazz to us, but it's the stuff that they feel passionate about. And what happened? My computer crashed. I had a Mac that crashed, so I've got some stuff up here I really don't want, but a successful platform, that previous slide was the one I wanted to cut out, is a platform that facilitates the most value-creating interactions for 2 or more customers it serves. So the guy I work with, Scott, says this. He says, a well-architected platform designed for self-interest leads to collaboration and releases the power of the collective. That's a very powerful statement, but you think about how could we build a city transformational movement around these things as a platform. So a well-architected platform, so we'll kind of break that down. So here's the 4 big platforms, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple. And each of these, well-architected, is much more like this. So we're still thinking, I think the city transformation thing, we're still in Web 1.0. We think we're going to provide something for somebody, and then they're going to like it and then come to us to get it. And we're going to have this transactional model. But what happens is, it's much more, we need to be much more like YouTube, not ABC. And what's the difference? Well, ABC produces programs for us to consume. YouTube is a platform where they invite anybody to come and create, and the best creators kind of get, they get, what's trending. They see what's there. And so we need to be more like Wikipedia, not Encyclopedia Britannica, which went out of print last year. And Wikipedia, is the place where everybody can contribute to the definitions of different things. Not just, well, we'll tell you, we've got some scholars here that we're going to tell you what these things mean. This subject means, these words mean, or this topic means. We need to be more like Airbnb, not Marriott Hotels. Marriott Hotels, I'm a Marriott guy, say Marriott Hotels, but I've also stayed at Airbnb. Airbnb allows everybody to rent their own rooms to people that need rooms at what a price that they want to pay. We need to be more like Twitter, not the AP. And Twitter is the most trusted news source in the world because it's based on crowdsourcing, 140 characters, but it allows everybody to kind of contribute. And what happens, still we're trying to run city ministries and often churches in the 1.0 era, where we have the best information. I've done the study. I'm going to tell you what it says. And like you said yesterday, you have to come through me to find out what the Bible says. And so in the same thing, how can we much more create a structure? What does it mean to be well architected? It's much more like a playground, not organized Little League. That has certain times of tryouts, but it's just, I passed the playground yesterday and I saw, they just set the stage and people were just having the time of their lives. They all chose what they wanted to do, and collectively they're having a great time. So well architected also, Richard Florida, the great guy in cities, but he says this: meaning and purpose come not from what we consume, but what we contribute and build. And what happens is, if we're trying to create meaning of people's lives in the city, it's not what we provide for people that's going to give them meaning. It's what we provide as an opportunities for them to contribute to have meaning. And because everybody, so when people say, I love Modesto, I love San Francisco, do they say it as a consumer, or do they say it because I have an opportunity to contribute and create in the city? And I think that's the advantage of that. If we can kind of understand that everybody has a desire to contribute as much as they do to breathe, but very few people are given the opportunity, how does a city platform become the place where young people, old people, professionals, Christian people, non-Christian people, Muslims, that we give everybody a chance to contribute because that's what they want to do. That's what they're looking for meaning in their life. And we think when we produce stuff to be consumed by them, we'll keep them coming for a while, but eventually, as many megachurches are finding out, after a while, that just kind of gets old. It's become very predictable if you're in the entertainment business. So we don't bemoan the fact that you can't get city leaders, let alone city pastors, to engage in your transformational movement. We need to build a platform where we can play. So even when we're having, and there's a reason why people come to what they come to, it's because, rather than saying, well, we called the meeting of the pastors, 7 guys showed up, and we kind of blame it on different things. But the point is, we get engaged in things long term. How many are on Facebook, by the way? Okay. How many are not on Facebook? Raise your hand. Okay, there's 3 or 4 of us. Okay. So, but we're engaged in long-term things for the long term, and things that are sustainable that meet this criteria. So, well architected, designed for self-interest. Self-interest is different than selfish interest. Selfish interest means I'm going to get in this pastoral group because I got an Amway business. Man, these would be great contacts for me. Self-interest is the way that God made us. He who comes to God must believe that he is and that he's what? A rewarder of those who diligently seek him, Hebrews 12:6. You have Jesus talking about in Matthew 6, the different types of rewards. Do you want your reward on earth or you want it in heaven? It's not motivation whether you're going to be motivated by rewards or not, but which one do you want? Do you want your earthly payback or do you want an eternal payback? And so what happens is everything we do, we came here to this gathering because of self-interest. If you became here because it would make Glenn feel bad if you didn't show up, you need some help. But you came here because you said, I will believe in my heart that I'll get more out of being here than me not being here. Amen on that? And some of you had to trust the people that invited you, but that was the equation they were telling you. And so it's not selfish interest, it's also to be sustainable over the long haul. Everything we do has to have this equation that people have to feel they're getting more out of it than they're putting into it. When churches start going south and attendance goes down, you know why? It's not a well-architected platform. People feel I'm putting more into it than I'm getting out of it. Anytime you feel you're getting something more out of it than you're putting into it, that creates something that's sustainable. And so again, we have to go back to what does it mean then to be well-architected in that. So the third thing is a little thing about egos and logos. What do we say? When you come to our meetings, what do you check at the door? And you're supposed to come in as kind of this non-entity, non-opinionated, non-branded, you just kind of come in as a vanilla person because you don't want to offend anybody. A well-architected, and if you have a poorly constructed platform, that'll work for a season. People eventually get tired of just hearing what you have to say. A well-architected program means that people bring their egos and their logos in. And it works. Because they're there for their self-interest. Not selfish interest, but they are for their self-interest. In a well-constructed platform, you know it's good. And I think we're experiencing a little bit today. And yesterday, when Father Eduardo, felt the freedom to bring all of himself into all of the room. He said, I'm bringing all of my theology into all of the room. I'm bringing myself. I'm not bringing my Protestant compatible self. I'm bringing my whole self. And for him to be involved in this movement in the Phoenix area, if he does not feel that freedom, he'll come for a couple times out of favor to Gary, but he will not be involved in it a long time. Does that make sense? So it's got to be a place where are we big enough that we're not offended by egos and logos? So the self-interests. So what happens is you've got to figure out what are the self-interests of everybody that you want involved. All the players that you involved, you've got to answer the question, well, why do these people want to be involved with us? What's their self-interest? Not what's my self-interest. I want to be a city transformer and I want to be the leader of the city movement in my city. That's your self-interest, but what's their self-interest? How do you get these people to be? So I just take, maybe it's the senior pastor comes because he really does want to get outside the walls and make community impact. School principals, maybe their interest is in increased graduation rate. The mayors, they need some stories to talk, about the cross-sector collaboration that they started to get reelected the next year. Educators, increasing third grade reading levels. Job creators, committed to changing my community by hiring the hardest employee as 5% of my workforce. Artists, I'd love to have a public forum where I could paint about social issues. Donors, I want my dollars to move the needle in the city. And so when you think about who you want in your movement, whether it be pastors or business people or educators or government, you have to answer the question, why would they ever want to get involved in this thing? And why would they stay involved over the long haul? It's interesting that it says leads to collaboration. The word co-laborer, Paul uses the word co-laborer in the Bible. And if you look up the word co-labor in the Bible, it comes from the Greek word synergos, from which we get the word synergy. And that means that 1 + 1 equals more than 2. So what happens when people come together, it says leads to collaboration. And by the way, whether we want to collaborate or not. In other words, if I'm there, if you think of all these platforms that I talk about, when you're on Amazon, and some of you are authors out there, that you don't post to Amazon because you want to make Amazon money. You posted there because you want to sell books. The publishers put your books on Amazon not because they want to help Amazon, they want to help themselves. Amazon created a platform where people could pay to put their books on there, and they'd get a percentage of the profit, not for the booksellers, not for you as an author, but for them. Everybody's there because of self-interest. When you post something on Facebook, you don't do it to help me. But if I'm coming down to Modesto and I'm just seeing, that Scott has just said, man, we just ate at this fantastic, had the best fajitas of my life at this Mexican restaurant. Scott may not like me, I may not like him, but we're collaborating together because he's helped me by posting the picture and a link to that restaurant. And so again, what happens is we do all these things, we show up at Facebook because of us. It's the same thing with the other thing, Apple products. I don't buy Apple products to help Apple. I buy Apple products because of me, because I want to help myself. It helps me to live a better life. Do you see that? So platforms have that magic that everybody there thinks they're gaining the best advantage. And so when you architect a city movement, the architecture is substandard unless it meets that criteria. If you're always excusing things like, well, it's tough spiritually these days, just go and re-examine that and say, well, why isn't so-and-so coming? What would be their interest in making them come there? Release the power of collective. There's a law called Metcalfe's Law, and it's the power of networking. And it's basically the idea that in networks, the old law of value used to be scarcity. Things were valuable because they are scarce. In the digital age, and I think the age we live in today, things are more valuable the more ubiquitous they become. In other words, the first fax machine was valueless until it got connected to the second fax machine. With every fax machine that got added onto that, the total value for everybody increased. The first person on the internet, the first person on the telegraph, one telephone by itself does nothing, but it's the power of a connected network that makes it happen. So in a city movement, that we create value by connecting people from all the different domains. The more connected they are, the more players that are there, the more valuable the city movement becomes. A city movement comprised of pastors has a certain value, no doubt about it. You add to that, though, government. You add to that business. You add to that, these other domains. With every domain that's added, your city network, your city transformation potential becomes even greater. Does that make sense? Metcalfe's Law, it's a good thing to understand. The current reality is business leaders, faith leaders, government leaders, not to mention leaders from other domains, work independently of one another in silos, doing their best to create solutions. Each one looks out for their own interests. That's what their funding's based on, all that kind of stuff. But what if instead, that we could, and I just use these three by demonstration, but government leaders, faith leaders, and business leaders coming together for the common good of the city. And that we're playing there, that becomes kind of our unifying force that what we're doing here. Lately, the last couple times we talked about, out of the Stanford Innovation Review, we've talked about collective impact. And I'll encourage you to read this article, Google this article, because it's called The Dawn of System Leadership. And what it says is that you can change any particular item, but nothing still changes. So you look like a guy like Mandela, who went in, and Mandela had to do, when he got released from prison, that he had to work with all sectors of people. He had to have his own reconciliation between the people that were oppressed and the oppressors and the oppressed. He was doing all these things, but if he only did that, nothing would have happened. It had to do with some of it with South African rugby. It has to do with the government. It had to do with but it's a system leader. So as a city movement leader, think of yourselves as a city as a system leader. And maybe Glenn, just to throw out a topic here, but maybe this is what we can talk about next year as if the whole system leadership. So. Questions? How many is this? Does this make sense? Don't you think our city movements, look, a lot of us have been involved in this a long time, we're still at 1.0. We send out invitations, want people to come. We're going to have a clever sounding title of a talk and expect people to come. And we're still on the information dispensing, and when we have a good website, you can kind of find out what we're doing here. But how could we kind of think differently about this as a platform place where everybody's there because of themselves, but the collective whole is the city becomes better, it's sustainable, people start to want financing it, et cetera, et cetera.